Al Donnelly might just be the next governor of Michigan.
All the way to the Capitol!
There's only one small problem.
His party chairman.
What the hell is a marquee doing here?
His heart is in the right place. Unfortunately,
Okay, see Al.
the rest of him never is.
Oh my God!
We've got to keep this bozo under wraps.
So now they have to find someone
Barney Chairman.
to keep him under control.
Okay, good first day.
You asked the interrogator question around my suit. It's gone.
What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal, ML Elric, ringing in the new year with some live content here on the Soul of Detroit. We are back for 2025, for better or for worse. And we're doing something a little different today. First of all, Sean's not here. Physically or spiritually, so that's actually not that different. Marc is here. Michigan won a bowl game, so that's...
What a great game that was, too.
I'd say that's new, but it's not really new these days. But and Michigan is the best team in the country now, right? If Ohio State wins the national championship, then Michigan's the best team.
Well, we're still the defending national champions until what, January 25th? The longest reign of a champion, right? Because they keep pushing the date back.
Wow. So is that you'd have a shorter reign for good behavior, but because you're such an evil program, your champion's longer? Is it like a sentencing thing?
All I know is we're still national champs.
Okay,
That's all that matters.
all signs point to yes. And we have a very special show today. It's brought to you by Luke Nowacki, who, if you're trying to, build some wealth and try and set yourself up for a more secure future, we recommend that you call Luke and his colleague Zach at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. I just met with them before the holidays, and we're talking about setting me up with a Roth IRA. If you don't know what that is, Luke will tell you, and it's a really, really good idea, and he can help you get it done. And the Caju Cafe, if you were out there on New Year's Eve, you saw Mike Skill from the Romantics, East Side legend, rock and roll hero performing, just one of the many great acts that play at the Caju. So we'll tell you who's coming up this week at the Caju, but it's always a great place for good music, good times, and good fun. So we appreciate their support of the show. And, of course, our biggest supporter is you, members of our Soulmates, people who are donating through Patreon to support this show. We're going to thank some new Soulmates. And, of course, we have a few people who just every once in a while send us a direct contribution. Nobody to thank because you cheap bastards didn't give us what we wanted for Christmas. And Marc will tell you what is always the best Christmas gift.
Cash.
Cash.
No doubt. Yeah, wrong, Marc.
Cash.
Yeah. Cash.
Or maybe a Jim Harbaugh signed polo shirt's pretty good second choice if you don't have cash laying around.
Yeah, thank you.
So we do want to thank those of you who support the show. And we have a guy who listens to the show who came up with an idea for us this week. And he said, hey, how about having the candidates for Michigan Democratic Party chair on the show? And I said, well, I don't know. Maybe we could do that. That sounds okay. And I realized very quickly why he was interested in that, because it turns out he's a candidate for Michigan Detroit, for Michigan Democratic Party chairman. That's Mark Ludwig, who, if you're one of our soulmates and you're watching this show, you can do that for as little as $5 a month. You can see him shamelessly pandering with one of our outstanding ML Soul of Detroit t-shirts. So Mark is here. He is the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party Rural Caucus, and he's got a few other gigs he'll tell you about. And Al B.J. Williams is here as well. He is a consultant, a political activist, and an entrepreneur. He's one of the other candidates for the party chairmanship. We invited the third party. I shouldn't say third. Democrats don't like to hear about third party these days. No, it's Jill Frankenstein, who didn't endorse President Trump, but may as well have, is not real popular with Democrats these days. If you looked at the numbers, I believe that Trump won Michigan by, was it 80,000 votes?
Yeah, just over.
And third party candidates collected 110,000 votes. So Jill Stein, Ralph Nader, you hated George Bush, you hate Donald Trump. You're welcome. You elected them president, so congratulations. So we don't want to talk about third parties. What I will say, the third candidate for Michigan Democratic Party chairman, former state senator, former congressional candidate Curtis Hertel, could not be with us. He has a scheduling conflict. We offered to let him sit in, as these gentlemen have done, or to Zoom in, but he just can't make it. So we did extend the invitation. We did try and work with his team to get him here, and it just didn't work out. So you're not going to hear from Mr. Hertel. I suspect you'll hear a little bit about Mr. Hertel before our conversation is ended, but please don't hold it against him that he's not here. He just couldn't make it. That happens sometimes, and I suspect it's because he's out raising millions of dollars to help make the Michigan Democratic Party better. So we wish him all the luck in the world with that, unless you're a Republican, in which case I guess you hope he falls on his face. And you hope these other gentlemen fail in their endeavors. We will reach out to the Republican Party chairman candidates, invite them to come on. So we do want to be bipartisan. But that's enough of the setup. Let's get to the two guys. Marc and Al, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for the invite.
My pleasure.
So these guys were in Ann Arbor the other day talking about their goals as Michigan Democratic Party chairman. I have never attended a Washtenaw County Democratic Party meeting, and I did watch a replay of it on YouTube. And it's interesting. I don't know that I've ever been to a political function before, and I guess this is maybe sort of an only in Ann Arbor type thing, where they start off by apologizing to indigenous people for stealing their land before they have the meeting. Does that happen a lot with Democrats?
Yeah, that's actually regular now within the Democratic Party, recognizing who came before the party was ever here in the state of Michigan. And so as I've traversed the state and gone to different Democratic Party meetings, yes, especially in the northern part of Michigan and the rural areas of Michigan, that's how they start. They do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then they recognize other heritage.
Really? Okay.
Can I? I just want to jump in. I mean, that's one of those things that I think rubs people the wrong way, even if it is correct and maybe a nice thing to do. But I mean, Democrats, that to me always seems to be the failure, is the messaging, because people hear that and are like, what are they doing? They just see it as silly. I mean, do you guys feel that way, or how do you accept that backlash about that?
No, I don't feel like it's silly. I think that it is different. But, we're the party of everybody in, nobody out. And so when you are about inclusion, you recognize other ethnic groups and their heritage. And so that's what that's about. It's about inclusion. It's about being more inclusive. And so, yeah, I do. When I hear it sometimes, I'm like, okay, but I understand the importance of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Well, it's interesting because in watching the forum, I heard a lot of talk about recognizing everybody's differences and making sure that we're sensitive to people, their pronouns and things like that. And I personally think that when I started the Free Press, for a lot of my life, I was known as Mike Elrick, and I've probably been ML Elrick longer than I've been Mike Elrick. And one of my colleagues came up to me and said, "What do you like to be called?" And I said, I don't care, whatever you're comfortable with. He's like, no, it's your name. You get to decide. And I said, well, then call me ML. It's like, okay, and there you go. So I appreciate that people should be referred to in the way that they prefer to be referred to. But when I heard people talking about that, when I hear you guys talking off the top of the show here, I think about the number of people who didn't vote for Democrats because they were persuaded by those Trump ads about we're not going to pay for gender reassignment surgery. We don't want to be told they, them, that we're sick of the wokeness. And there is at least a perceived backlash against this sensitivity and inclusion in DEI and CRT and all this other stuff, where in a close race, that's one of the things I wonder, are Democrats having conversations saying, look, we want to respect everybody, but maybe we don't want to make it, one of our headline items. Are you concerned about that? I mean, do you see this as something that could hold back this party that really just lost a close election, but it lost, and losses hurt?
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that's coming up. and a big theme of my campaign is the chair really ought to stay out of some of these hot button issues, focus on the core economic message of the Democratic Party, and accept that, even internally in the party, we have some controversy with some of our factions about, how much we're going to talk about these things, I guess would be the fair way to put it. And I like to say that keeping the Democratic coalition together is like herding cats in a goat rodeo. And there's a whole bunch of people pulling in different directions. And, one of the things we're really talking about is, what are the things we can agree on? Can we build a messaging around that and leave room and grace for each other so that we can maintain our big party?
Al, are Democrats too woke to win?
No, not at all. I think that, like I said, we're a big tent party. We have to talk about issues that affect, that are centered around our core values. One of those is being inclusive. I think in this past election, our problem was messaging. Not only did we not respond to quick enough or well enough to the lies and all the made up false stories the Republican Party was putting out there. But at the same time, I don't think we talked enough about the core values to Michiganders. Our national message was just off in too many places. For instance, Kamala talked a lot about reproductive health and reproductive rights. Well, we had already solved that problem in Michigan. So it wasn't a motivating factor really here in Michigan. But that was the main topic. I mean, she did a whole big concert in Texas centered around reproductive health rights, and we had already won that fight in Michigan. So I just think we missed the boat on that, and I think we have to do a better job responding to the lies that Republicans continue to push on a regular basis. We have to do a better job showing people that the Democratic Party has honestly been the party of the people for a very long time. And we include all people, including the LGBT community and including some very, very conservative billionaires. Unfortunately, sometimes we look out for their rights, too. So, no, I don't think we're too woke. And I think the whole concept of what woke is has been manipulated by the Republican Party, actually. And so we need to do a better job telling the truth of what that really means and how those values are actually in line with being more inclusive for the party.
Well, I've always felt that Republicans have always been better on messaging. Just in my whole lifetime, because it's simple, it's easy to say no. But how do you change that messaging to where they're really controlling narratives about wedge issues? And the Democrats aren't.
No, it's a huge problem, and it's hard to go up against a political party that'll lie like a cheap rug all day long about you if you're not there responding. And far too often we won't go on this media because they're biased. We won't go on that podcast because they're too bro-y. We won't go on this podcast because they're, super right-wing Christians. You got to accept that the media environment has fragmented, that the media environment is fundamentally biased and unfair, and go forth and fight anyway. You look at Pete Buttigieg and how successful he's been getting on Fox News, talking about the issues. And quite frankly, these right-wing outlets, they love it when they've got an actual leftist they can tangle with instead of just talking to each other about it. So we just need to be more aggressive about getting out there, putting out our message, and pushing back on some of these ridiculous stories that circulate. The other thing we got to do is far too often the Democrats want to go right to talking about policy. 95% of people do not care about the details of your policy positions.
Perception. Yeah.
Right. Well, and we talk about this at the Rural Caucus all the time. You want to go out there and you want to talk about your story, about you. And you want to talk about your values and how your values, reflect what you're going to do when you're elected. If you can get those two in, maybe you talk about a little bit of policy if you're talking in front of a group that's got some particular thing that they're interested in. But make sure you get those first two out. And frankly, make sure you always tie back to economics. Every answer ought to start with economics, end with economics. And if you can hit it in the middle too, do it.
So who lost Michigan? Who ran this campaign? Let me rephrase that. Who ran the campaign in Michigan? Was it the Democrats in Michigan? Was it the National Democrats? Was it Kamala Harris? because you talk about abortion in Texas. That's a big deal in Texas. That's a really big deal in Texas. So I understand the Democratic presidential nominee wanting to push that when she's in Texas and in other parts of the country where it's not the law of the land as it is in Michigan. But the top of the ticket, losing Michigan, is one thing. But losing it lower down, shouldn't Michigan Democrats take some responsibility for losing the House and losing some of these Board of Trustees seats and some other spots where it wasn't about these national issues? It was really about what life is like for people here in the upper and the lower peninsula.
Absolutely. I think that our leadership in Michigan needs to stand up and take the responsibility for this election. I mean, our national campaign and message was one thing. Here in the state of Michigan, the campaign was completely horrendous. And anybody that identifies as a Democrat and is engaged in the process will tell you the same thing. There was no ground game. The messaging was basically exactly what the DNC or the National Party just handed us. And there was no real coordination amongst our leadership. I don't even think that the top of the ticket and our chairperson of the party were meeting regularly for synergy at all or talking at all during this past campaign. I think that even the convention, after the DNC convention, there was a convention in Lansing for the state party, and it was completely unenergetic, and the only energy in the room were from young kids who were held out of the process. And so I think the leadership in this state has lost this election. I wouldn't put it on the just solely on the National Democratic Party. I would lay this whole thing in Michigan at the feet of our leadership, and I would hold ourselves responsible as Democratic members of the party.
Well, how responsible is Governor Whitmer? Because isn't she really the head of the Democratic Party in Michigan? I mean, I saw her campaigning all over the country.
Did you?
I mean, she was, there was a story in the Detroit News that said she spent 25% of her time away from Michigan campaigning.
Well, I'll say this, working in this medium, she had no problem jumping on national shows and national podcasts, but nothing really in the state outside of, maybe Wood or WDIV.
Oh, God, if you're a Detroit reporter trying to get somebody from the governor's office, let alone the governor, to talk to you, forget about it. I mean, how much responsibility does she bear for what happened in Michigan?
I mean, after the debate, the first Biden debate, there was a story that came out. I could have sworn you wrote this story, ML. I could have sworn you got this. You probably
was it really crappy? Because if it was, I probably did write it.
Oh no! If your stories are crappy, everybody still reads them, so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But
thanks for the feedback, Al. All of a sudden, I'm a Hertel guy.
I'm just saying, if they are crappy, I still read them.
I got you. Okay.
But there was a story that came out where somebody had heard, or there was a conference call, or a message passed by the governor telling people that we've already lost Michigan. We can pack our bags and go home. I'm going on my book tour.
Yeah, I didn't write that, but I think I did see that.
Yeah, and that was immediately after the Biden debate. And so her mindset was, I'm going on my book tour. This is over. I'm going to campaign around the country, but we've lost Michigan already. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't think she was here. It's one of the reasons why I don't think that you really saw any of the top Democratic leaders. Like, I didn't even see Warren Evans doing much this time around.
Well, Warren said that Democrats didn't talk to him. He said Democrats are taking a black vote for granted, and as long as they do that, he's not going to work too hard for them. And certainly the black vote went much stronger for Republicans this time than it did last time.
Well, not much stronger. It was for Republicans. They gained some ground on the black vote. Overwhelmingly, black voters still voted Democratic, but we need to do a better job. Democrats need to do a better job valuing the voices of African Americans, especially black women who voted 92% Democratic.
Well, I ran against a black woman for city council. Believe me, black girl magic. It's
a real thing.
Yeah, I'm you want to. I still got smoke coming out for me. 20%, man. You don't forget that overnight.
At all. So,
ass beaten.
Yeah, that's you know. But ML, you still could you when you're not against a black woman, I think you'll do great.
I was told if I ran against another white guy named Mike and his last name wasn't Duggan, I had a chance.
It would have been closer.
That's probably true.
Yeah, the L. They thought the L in ML stood for Livonia. I said, no, that's the other white Mike, but it didn't. I didn't get that message out too well. Yeah. So,
hey, let me
Mark,
pile
it
on
sounds
with
like Al's putting some of the responsibility for this at the governor's feet. How do you feel about that?
Oh, let me pile on. Not only do I think the governor kind of was absent, but I go back to the last time the governor started meddling around in these chair elections, when one of the things she did is effectively booted our second vice chair, who was a prominent Arab person, and replaced them with a state representative who, I haven't heard that they did anything with that position except slap it on their resume. And that began a series of errors with dealing with the Arab community, which led to total disaster by Election Day. And, do I think that we could have somehow gotten all of those people back in our voting pool? No. Do I think that by screwing up like that we made the situation impossible or at least worse? Absolutely. So, I look at the present moment when the governor has once again selected a candidate with, I think, significant liabilities, and that will probably be the so-called unity slate candidate. A lot of people fall in line in this party.
Well, let's be direct, because folks don't follow this as closely as you guys do. Curtis Hertel, former state senator, just lost to Tom Barrett for a congressional seat in mid-Michigan, has been endorsed by the governor for party chair. Often in party politics, when you have a chief executive, a governor, they get to pick the leader of the party, or at least they try and get the Democrats or the Republicans, whoever's in charge, to pick their person. Curtis Hertel is Whitmer's person. Curtis Hertel was Whitmer's legislative director before he ran for Congress, and I believe his wife may still be one of the department heads.
DHHS.
Yes, so she runs Health and Human Services for the governor. So
they're all buddy.
Whitmer and the Hertels are pretty strong together. Now, full disclosure, the Hertels used to live around the block from me. May or may not have babysat for my kid at one time. I don't remember, but we don't endorse anybody.
In Lansing?
Yeah, well, no, they lived on Kensington at one point. But, and there's been some question of whether his dad really lived in Detroit. There was a story in the Free Press about that. It also called out Kwame Kilpatrick for asking whether he really lived in Detroit at the same time. That story's about 25, 30 years old. But he's definitely a Lansing guy. You guys oppose him. Obviously, you are very cordial, but you oppose each other. I think you've made the case for why Curtis Hertel is not the guy. But why is your opponent not the guy? I'll let either one of you start. I'll call on you whatever you prefer. But if you guys were so tight, this would be a team and not
who's
not
to say
rivalry.
who's to say it's not?
Well, okay, so you guys are each going to get 25% of the vote, and if he gets 50% of the vote, that's not going to work out that way.
That's not how it actually works in the Democratic Party. What will very likely happen...
So you mean it's really hard to understand? That doesn't sound like the Democrats to me. No, sorry, that does.
We could go down the rabbit hole of complexity if you like, but I do think that Al and I will end up on the same slate by the time we get to Election Day on the 22nd of February there at the Renaissance Center. We've got a couple more weeks where we can kind of jockey to see who gets to be the top of the slate, but I will tell you that when I declare...
Is this something where if you don't get 50%, there's another vote and you can come together?
The chair's race in all elections on the 22nd are based on proportional voting, and so that's to make sure that every county, every congressional district is represented in the election. So the rules are different in the Democratic Party as it is in the Republican Party. In the Republican Party, when they have their convention...
Well, in the Republican Party, you have to endorse Trump.
Well,
That's the first rule.
Yeah, that's the first rule.
Yeah.
But when they have their convention, it's only a small group of people that are able to vote. You have to be you have to be a precinct delegate, basically, or an elected official. Both the positions are elected. Within the Democratic Party, as long as you agree with our values, you sign up and become a member, you can vote. And so we always have bigger elections with more people in it. And so we have to allow for all of those voices and all of those people voices and their vote to be counted for. That's why we do a proportional voting. And because of that, we as a party are all about unity and solidarity. And so we try to negotiate and talk to each other to build the biggest slate coalition possible. That's what the party has always been about, building coalitions. And so even in our elections for chair, we try to work with each other to build a coalition. And Hertel is not a bad guy. I mean, yeah, he's part of the establishment, and I don't think the party should be ran by the establishment. I think we need to hold them accountable too. But he's a good fundraiser, In my community, I don't know where you can fail forward. And so when you lose something, when you lose the bag, you don't get rewarded for that in my community, if you know what I mean. You can't go in my hood and say, I just lost the bag, and then you get promoted. You know what I'm saying?
Well, your hood is my hood, and I went in there and I didn't get the bag. I got bagged.
Well, there you go. There you go. And so, but he is part of the establishment, and when you're part of the establishment, even when you lose the bag, sometimes they try to reward you, and you can fail forward. And I think that's part of the problem within the Democratic Party. We have to change our feel. We have to be more of a grassroots organization and hold our own elected officials accountable. Like, for instance, in the Republican Party, if you're not supporting Trump, ask Justin Amash, if you're not supporting Trump, they will get rid of you. In the Democratic Party, if you're not voting according to our values, we give you another chance. That doesn't make any sense to me, and that's, I think, why the Democratic Party isn't looked at or trusted like it used to be, because we got too many fakers that go up there and do exactly the opposite of what we voted for them to go and do.
So I'm confused. How are you guys going to win? I mean, if Curtis Hertel gets 50%, it's over, right? 50 plus 1?
Yeah, 50 plus 1. But I don't believe that. I think that we have the momentum, and we're going to out-organize him, so he won't get 50 plus 1.
So he gets 49%, and you guys get 25.5% each or something like that. Which one of you guys takes over?
No,
or is it a two-headed monster?
No.
More a three-headed monster, actually. We'll have...
Oh, yeah. This is the Democratic Party.
Welcome aboard. By the time we get to convention...
My race was nonpartisan, by the way. I stay out of this.
Okay. We all got a story. By the time we get to convention, it'll be a slate of 3, Al, myself, and somebody else. So it will be a two-way race at this point, the way it's looking like. So there won't be any of this, a quarter here and a quarter there and half there. What we offer is a true grassroots slate, which covers all of Michigan. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula. I've lived in northern Michigan. I've lived in rural Michigan and been working with this rural caucus for 8 years. I've got a great base of support outstate. Al has a fantastic base of support in Detroit. You put the two of us together and we're the team to beat. And that's what we'll be developing here over the next couple of weeks. We'll continue to operate as independent campaigns. That lets us cover more ground. And frankly, the Free Press doesn't want to hear from the second vice chair candidate for the Michigan Democratic Party. They want to hear, about the people who are trying to run for the chair. We have all, including Curtis, committed to working together for the party once we get past this election. This isn't about driving anybody out of the party. This is about returning to being really grassroots focused. Curtis Hertel might be a nice guy, but he has been playing politics on a different level than we have.
But like Al said, though, he can raise money. I mean, is money the name of the game still? Because it didn't seem to be, wasn't a shortage of money in Michigan for the Democrats. Is it about money?
No, it's definitely not about money. As you can see, Kamala and the DNC raised over $1 billion, spent over $1 billion, raised more money than Donald Trump did officially on the books, but still did not win. And then there are plenty of examples out there where candidates on the Democratic side have won without dark money or billions of dollars. And so it's not about money. He can raise money, and he lost. He raised $7.7 million and still lost. So for me, our rebuilding our party is not about raising the most money or outraising Republicans. It's about building our community and getting back to the focus of where the party started. See, I tell this story about Soapy Williams. Soapy Williams was elected in 1948. I grew up seeing a yard sign in my garage every day as a kid. I used to think he was my uncle. Come to find out, he's not even black. But but he is from Detroit. And prior to him winning, the Democratic Party in the state of Michigan did not have a chair. It was operated by the Democratic State Central Committee, which at the time, makes sense for me and Mark too, because at the time, the Democratic State Central Committee was made up of people in rural communities in northern Michigan and people in Wayne County, primarily from the city of Detroit. It was those two grassroots coalitions that came together and built a big tent here in Michigan. And their slogan at the time was a precinct delegate in every precinct, a candidate in every single race, a poll worker at every single polling location. So they built this huge grassroots movement to win. And Soapy Williams became the first governor with very little money spent. I mean, he had some money, but the party did.
He had a lot of money. He had a lot of armpit money.
Yeah, a lot of soap and deodorant.
G-Men and Williams.
That's right. He used to give out bars of soap to people. I don't know if we can do that now and win some votes.
It might be kind of insulting.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you vote for me, Stinky? I don't know. But if you guys want to use it as a slogan, Curtis said he thinks it'd be great for you guys.
No. So the slogan I'm still
he
in
wants the unwashed to join the Democratic Party.
No, I want to take it. I want to steal what they did as a grassroots organization back then and bring the party back to that. We used to include all voices and make sure that we were moving as one solid unified force, whether you were from the UP or Wayne County. And we got to get back to that. And at that time, the party wasn't ran by the establishment. The party was ran by true hardcore Democrats who believed in our values. And that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah, and yet you jump forward to today. We've got a party where if you call the office, you are very unlikely to get your call returned. You email the Democratic Party, you're very unlikely to get your email returned. And this is coming from me. I'm a state central committee member, and I chair a rather prominent caucus, and I don't get my emails returned. Ooh. So, this is not a problem. I mean, yes, we have messaging problems. Yes, we need to raise money. But, first of all, it'd be nice to get our house in order and make sure that the people, when they need some help, get some help. The county I grew up in, Iron County, there's no Democratic Party in that county right now. I can literally remember my political awakening at the Iron County Fair at the Democratic Party booth, and that's gone. So sure. we need to get back to the basics and rebuild the capacity of county parties, of clubs, of congressional district committees, and that takes tending and attention, and yes, some money, but it's more about focus.
Well, I think it takes a lot of money. If you got 83 county chairs calling and you want to have a precinct delegate in every precinct, to return those calls, to give people time, to give them resources requires a lot of money. And as far as Soapy goes, obviously very successful governor. But one of the things I didn't hear in his saying is a phone banker, a Twitter campaign, get out the vote campaign, a flush campaign, because as I recall,
they didn't have that back then.
When he ran for governor, we barely had hot water, and it wasn't until Al Gore invented the internet, because I don't know if you guys go to polling places, but I do. There's nobody there these days.
Yeah.
People are not voting on election day at the polling places. So Soapy, no disrespect to the dead, but things have changed.
It all depends on where you are. People are voting at polling locations in certain areas, and people are voting by mail in other areas, and that's very important. Access to the ballot box is extremely important, and that's one of the things that we need to continue to advocate for, opening up democracy and making it available for everybody, but we also need to do that within our party, and I think that's part of the problem. We are not a party that's open and accessible to everybody. For instance, do you live in southeastern Michigan, you probably identify as a Democrat or at least believe in some of the values the Democratic Party believes in as well. You've run for office, but I guarantee you've probably never been to a Democratic convention. You've probably never been to
as a reporter, but yeah.
Oh, well, as a reporter. See, that's what I'm saying. You probably have as a reporter, but not as an identified Democratic voter. And so that's part of the reason why is because we have this.
I am non-binary when it comes to politics, okay? Not Democrat, not Republican.
Well, that's usually.
I use every bathroom, by the way, but I don't bring a camera with me. So.
That's usually the background of most people in media. They try to stay as neutral as possible, and that's understandable. But for the rest of us who are not really in media and know our values and lean into our values, for those who identify as Democrats, our party here in the state of Michigan, we have to make it easier for them to participate. And we'll have those phone bankers on a regular basis. We need to make it easier for our members to participate, and we'll have enough precinct delegates to cover all 5,000 precincts in the state of Michigan. By the way, in 2016, the Democratic Party lost to Donald Trump in Michigan by just over 10,000 votes, which is exactly, in Michigan, we have just over 5,000 precincts. It will be the exact number of 2.2 votes per precinct. So we lost to Donald Trump by 2.2 votes per precinct. If we had a real grassroots organizing effort from the party and a program that really put a precinct delegate in every single precinct in the state of Michigan, and precinct delegates are elected. They're elected in their community, the most local elected official there is.
Most of them don't have candidates. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
You see those blank spots on your ballot.
Right. But if those precinct delegates just took two people to the polls with them in 2016, if we had a program like that, then we would not have lost to Donald Trump here in Michigan, and the blue wall might not have failed. It's those simple, basic things the party has to do that have a tremendous impact on national elections.
Well, and that's going to take money, and I don't think anybody should run a party or any organization just because they could raise money. And we should say, well, Curtis Hertel did raise a ton of jack to run for Congress. He ran in one of the toughest districts there is, and so you can run a good race and still lose. But clearly, he's able to raise money. He's going to have the governor's people. She raises money. She's got her leadership committee, all that stuff. I don't see how you can win without money, but if all you're bringing is money, as you said, people don't understand this. Kamala Harris spent more than Donald Trump, and I don't know if she spent more than Elon Musk, but anyway, she spent more than Trump, and it's got to take more than money. I'm totally confused by how you guys are running against each other, but you're not running against each other, but you could beat Curtis Hertel as long as he doesn't get to 50%. If you can explain that to me in less than... I was going to say an hour, but if you can do it in less than 15 seconds, that would be great. But otherwise, I think you should each give me a message. And if one of you is going to be the boss and one of you is going to be the associate boss, who's it going to be? And how do you decide that?
Well, let's keep them guessing, Al. We will consolidate to a slate because we want to actually win and make sure that the grassroots is going to run this party instead of the money people and the governor's people. And we really, I think, need a leadership team that doesn't answer to any particular group in the party, that answers to all of the party. How's that work? Before the convention, I believe 30 days before, we need to consolidate to our final slate. So we've got a little more time in January where we will run independent campaigns. And as we close in on that time, we'll sit down. We're actively recruiting right now for our third, and we'll form that slate and go forward from there. I think we both actually have a rather compelling case for the top, and we're just going to have to sit down and kind of hash it out. And hell, maybe by the end of this, we'll rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to go first. We're committed.
What about the octagon? Have you guys ruled out some MMA action? That really works for Republicans. You might even get to run a cabinet department if you're into wrestling.
No, I'll just race them for it. But, but no, I mean, I think that this is the democratic process, man. And so for us, it's about allowing candidates to organize their people. And just like in a regular election, there are Democratic primaries, and then after the Democratic primary, Democrats get together to run in a general election. This is the same process. It's just that we're building a coalition, and there is no real primary, but there is a date or a deadline in which we'll come together and then go forth as an organization or a coalition, a grassroots coalition, to take over the party or to make sure that the party is valuing grassroots voices. So he runs the rural caucus. I'm the vice chair of the grassroots caucus. Both are the fastest growing caucuses with the most members in the party. And so bringing those two caucuses together will give us the numbers needed in order to get to 51%. And so that's basically how this is working. You're bringing grassroots organizers from urban areas and precinct delegates from urban areas from around the state, and organizers, grassroots movements, and progressives from rural areas around the state. We're coming together to take on the establishment.
Okay.
And
so
that's how that's going to work.
Who's on Hertel's slate?
A whole bunch of elected officials.
But you can only have 3 on there, right?
You can have the executive positions. So you can have 2 first and second vice chair, 1 male, 1 female, and then a treasurer. So yeah, there are 3 positions that are available. But I don't know who's on his slate. He hasn't revealed that as of yet.
So you guys haven't figured out yet whether you're the Wilwig slate or the Ludliams state?
No, we figured out that we are the Michigan Solidarity Coalition slate. We've already got the name. We're already organizing under the Michigan Solidarity Coalition slate. We have a process that we've both agreed to, where we are going to figure out who is the candidate for chair. And I'm okay with Marc. I think Marc is a great guy that's going to bring some great things to the table.
He's got some cool T-shirts. I'll give him that.
Yeah, I need to get me one of those, but I'm not the cheap soulmate.
Well, you can be a soulmate for $60 a month. You don't have to come in at 5, Al. Believe me, there's no spending cap here. Here, we'll take it all.
Okay, I hear that, but
no, Curtis just offered us $7 million. So
yeah, I mean, hey, he got it, and I'm not mad at Curtis because after we win this, as Democrats, we all need to work together. And so since he's able to raise all that money, I want to hire him as and his team as our fundraising team.
So you're going to turn him out? You're going to put him on the street?
There you go.
Okay. I did see you wear a big hat when you came in. I didn't see the feather.
The feather is there.
Oh, that's not a Woodward 1975 feather.
Oh no. It's not that big. No,
yeah, okay.
No.
Yeah.
But it's straight from Henry the Hatter though.
No, hey, I'm more of a Hot Sam's guy, but that's fine.
Okay.
And of course, I just saw my man from Hot Sam's at the Mary Sheffield kickoff for mayor. And by the way, we're going to have Santil Jenkins getting the mayor's race next week, so things are heating up back here in Detroit.
Well, speaking of that, and speaking of the mayor and fractions in the Democratic Party, he's running as an independent. Some people say it's because the establishment didn't want him. Other people are saying, no, this is a joke. He knows what he's doing. Do you have any opinions on Mike Duggan running as an independent for governor?
It's a huge pain in our ass, and it's a betrayal of, a long situation he had with us, and he took a lot of support from the Democratic Party, and it's really disappointing to see him turn his back on us. I understand why he did it, because Jocelyn Benson's going to mop the floor with him in a primary.
Not Buttigieg?
Well,
Maybe.
Buttigieg, I mean, the more people who got into that race, the more the less likely it is he's going to win.
Not Gilchrist?
Maybe.
Chris might get in too.
Chris
Maybe.
Swanson?
Maybe. I mean, I think all those candidates are great, and I think the more the merrier for the turnout of the Democratic Party for the governor's election.
Because sometimes it feels like it's more in disarray when you have all these people throwing their hats in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think Republicans have done 19 candidates for governor at once or for president, and they didn't have any issues. Well, we have a bigger tent and much more people who identify as Democrats. So, yeah, I think we need as many candidates as possible. And on the Mike Duggan issue, ML, you've been in politics or in media media covering politics for a long time, you know that Mike Duggan has not always been a Democrat.
He's the only Democrat in his family. Daddy got appointed to the
Exactly.
federal bench by Ronald Reagan.
Exactly. So, he was a young Republican at one time and was appointed by a Democrat to serve as the Wayne County prosecutor and had to run to retain his seat. There was no way he was going to run and win as a Republican. So he had to run as a Democrat, and everybody since then has thought that he's identified as a Democrat. Unfortunately, some people never believed him. I'm one of them. And even while he was mayor, and sent his son to run to be a part of the Democratic leadership within the Democratic Party, take all of our data, build all of these relationships, and then decide to up and run. Yes, just like Mark, I feel betrayed. I feel like he was never a Democrat, knew he was never a Democrat, and used our resources to keep himself in office and in power. And now that the going gets tough, it's getting a little hot in the kitchen, he want to jump ship. I think that's absolute betrayal. I think real hardcore Democrats see that for what it is and understand that means that he doesn't identify with our values. So if he doesn't identify with the Democratic values, where are his values? And it's independents and people who sway whichever way the wind blows. You got to worry about them when they're in leadership positions. Because one day he can be a Democrat. The next day he can be cozying up to corporations. And the third day he can be cozying up to Republicans. And so we can't. When you're governing, you want to know the leader's values, at least where their values are. And I can't tell where his values are if he's always swaying parties.
I can think of another Democrat who became a Republican who just got elected president for the second time, so that doesn't necessarily get held against you the way it used to. But on the Duggan point, sure. and I thought with the Washtenaw County Democratic Forum, the part where I saw some real fire from all three of you, Curtis Hertel, Mark Ludwig, who's with us today, Al B.J. Williams is with us today, was on the Duggan point. But I want to suggest something or ask you about this. Could the Duggan independent candidacy also help Democrats because he's going to draw some Republican votes who say, you know what, I'm not one of these Trumpy Republicans, and I guarantee whoever runs for governor is going to have some Trump imprimatur on him. I'm not sure I'm with the far left Democrats, but I'm looking for somebody. I'm going with Mike Duggan. Does he pick up some of those Romney Republicans, those Snyder Republicans who can't go with the Trumpy gubernatorial candidate, and they're never going to come with you guys? They're going to leave their ballot blank for governor, or they're going to vote for somebody. Is there a scenario where Duggan running actually helps the Democratic nominee?
I think it does in some cases. He'll pick up the Dave Trotts of the world who wasn't a Trumpster, but he's a corporate Republican.
Rick Snyders.
The Rick Snyders of the world. Yeah, he'll pick up those corporate guys, and that's fine.
Loves that dirty water.
Exactly, and that's fine. But I think at the end
get the lead out of the Republican Party. Mike Duggan.
I don't think he's going to be able to get the lead out of the Republican Party, but
we'd settle if he got it out of the Flint water. But
I hope so. But I do think he'll pick up some Republican votes. And I think that will help us in some ways. I also believe that there's a clear strategy that we will play as Democrats. We have put, progressive thinking candidates in races before. There have been progressive leaning Democrats who have run as independents before. And I think if you have some well-known progressive-leaning Democrats who are willing to put their name out there, they may jump in as an independent candidate. And the more independent candidates you have, the less votes total that Mike Duggan will be able to get.
Well, I want to go to Mark before we leave, but I just got a text messages from Lena who tells me that there's a lot of job opportunities here and I could maybe make up to $780 a day doing this. So we got to wrap up so I can apply for this great opportunities. These text messages, man, I got some dating opportunities on here, too, since the show started.
Look at you.
I'm getting out of this politics, man. I get laid and paid just by listening at my phone. Mark, what's going to happen with this thing? You and Al, it sounds like, have fallen deeply in love. It's just got to figure out who's going to be the boss and who's going to be the underboss. How do you beat Hertel and whatever he puts on his slate?
We beat Hertel by organizing, and I've got a head start with my base of support in the Rural Caucus. Al's got a head start with 20 years of political organizing in Detroit. We are rolling up support all over this state.
So this is ebony and ivory. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah,
you got inside, outside. You got urban,
Jungle
suburban.
Fever.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Okay.
Wow. East, west, hip hop.
Annabella Sciorra.
We got it all.
She's actually texting me now, but it's only because she's 70.
Well, and
because I think Wesley turned her out, but
oh no.
Well, and I think we certainly are conscious when we're looking for our third person at further, expanding our appeal. And we're thinking about geography. We're thinking about ethnicity. And frankly, we're going everywhere, and we're talking to everybody. From when I opened up my campaign, the first place I went was Dearborn, and I talked to some of our our Arab citizens who are justifiably upset by what has gone down in Palestine. And and I'm also in touch with people in the Jewish community and saying, I want my Arab voters back, but I don't want to drive you away. It's this attention to detail. It's this attention to talking to everybody, thinking about geography, thinking about, the fact that it's a big, diverse state, and really focusing on the party, because I got to tell you, there is not one Democratic Party chair in this state who is happy with the state party right now. Okay. Everybody's got an axe to grind. Everybody's got a beef. And, I got into this thinking, all the action must be in Southeast Michigan. That must be where all the resources and attention went. No, honestly, I got no idea where their attention's going. It just seems to really be a dysfunctional party right now. Both Al and I are focused like a laser on getting that party effective. Everything else flows from that, whether it's fundraising, whether it's electoral success, whether it's building a base of candidates. If you've got a strong local party, it makes a huge difference. In Allegan County, where I live, we've gone from, in 2016, spending about $5,000 raising and spending, to raising and spending $30,000. And we're not the only county party that's growing and in good shape and doing well. We've got a lot of parties which are barely hanging on. So the goal is to build up that grassroots strength, and really everything else flows from that.
Okay, well, the Democrats without Jill Stein, without Palestine, would have had a lot better chance, but I guess we're going to have some new leadership. When there's a loss, the boss takes it. That was Lavora Barnes, who was the Democratic Party chairman. She left after the bloodbath in Michigan. Mark Ludwig and Al B.J. Williams running against each other, kind of not really. That's an interesting twist. And Curtis Hertel, the other big figure out there. We will be following this as it progresses in the Detroit Free Press, and we'll try and keep you up to speed here. Gents, thanks for coming in. Good luck when you figure out who's on top and who's on the bottom. Tell us who that is. Don't send us any pictures. That's not anything we need. But good luck.
This is proof we can handle Broy podcasts. We can totally do that.
Go everywhere.
Well, and Mark's
everywhere.
Mark's a devil worshiper, so you're kind of hitting all the bases.
I like your Kirk Gibson posters. I didn't know he was a model.
Yeah, he's.
I don't think he knows he's a model.
I didn't know he was a waxer. But, very strategic.
That is the most hilarious picture I've ever seen of Kirk Gibson in my life.
Drew Lane is
knows it too.
Is a good friend of Kirk Gibson's. Anybody who listens to the Drew Lane podcast knows that all too well. But gents, thanks for coming in. And we do want to thank our supporters before we get to our Geek of the Week. Luke Nowacki. Listen, we're talking about raising money. This guy knows a little something about money. He heard from the best of celebrities, and this is, Luke talks to everybody, that if Donald Trump won in November, it would be the end of our nation. Then he heard from some other people that if Kamala Harris won in November, it would be the end of our nation. Luke doesn't go for that. He says, since it appears that you may be screwed either way, why not ask Luke Nowacki for help managing your investment portfolio as the country implodes like the last days of Rome? As LaDuff likes to say, hey, there was the fall of Rome, but I still see lots of Italians, so I think we're probably going to be okay. What do you have to lose? After all, you can't lose more than 100%. But if you do call Luke, he will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. member FINRA-SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
And you can reach Luke at 248-663-4748, or you can find a link to his website on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. And if you call Luke, tell him that ML sent you.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Well, I woke up this morning to some unsettling news. Meta, which you may know as the owner of Facebook, which is sort of like saying the devil owns hell, Meta decided we are no longer going to do fact-checking. We're not going to have any of our people try and make sure that our platform, which is completely unregulated, has any truth. Instead, we're going to rely on our users to determine what the truth is. In other words, it's like saying if you don't believe in gravity, then we're all going to float. Well, the fact of the matter is there is gravity, whether you users believe in it or not. The Earth is round, whether you're sailing towards the edge of it or not. But Meta has decided that in this era where truth is not important, where massive corporations, particularly those in the social media realm, have no responsibility whatsoever to their users or to society, while they're poisoning the minds of our children and our friends and neighbors, turning us against each other, allowing live streamed suicides, allowing people to post revenge porn and things like that. This is the same Meta where Mark Zuckerberg testified before Congress that we're going to bring order. We're going to clean up social media by using AI. Well, that didn't happen, probably because none of the senators knew what social media was, let alone AI. And now, instead of doing anything to try and bring some law to this lawless territory, they've just thrown up their hands. Maybe it's because it's cheaper not to have humans making sure that the crap they put out there isn't toxic crap, but just sort of like regular old crap. Maybe it's because they're worried that our leaders don't care so much about truth or accountability anymore, that we're now in a place where facts are negotiable. I don't know what it is, but I know it's...
Or is it more to be like how Twitter does it, because they're going to use the community notes and all that stuff because they want a seat at the table when the legislation's written.
Well, and Twitter, we're going to do... That's not... Twitter is not a open forum anymore. If Elon decides it's important, it's important. This is not the lunatics running the asylum.
Well,
this is asylum with a big lunatic in charge.
If you pay for the check mark, you're important. I mean, those are the ones that get pushed to the top.
Well, then guess what? Then they need to be regulated. If they're making money off of this and they're deciding what's true and what's not true, yeah, I mean...
Which is why they want to see it, which is why Meta wants to sit there, because they know the regulation's coming.
Exactly. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to show the people who may put them under their heel that they don't need to be feared, because when it comes time to be a good little boy, they'll be a good little boy, even if being a good little boy means that they're going to be bad for our little boys and our little girls. So, Meta, you are our Geek of the Week.
Me again!
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
There's a really corny old movie. I don't know if it was Henry Fonda or if it was Brian Keith, but I think it was called With Six You Get Egg Roll. Has anybody seen that?
No, never even heard of it.
I wouldn't recommend looking it up. But if you are running for Democratic Party chairman and you agree to come on this show, we have a similar program. You get to pick a song for room 7609. So Mark suggested The Alarm with Sold Me Down the River. I have a feeling that choice is full of portent. But Mark, why did you pick this tune?
For the turnaround you're going to hear in just a second here, which is so tight.
Mark's going to hit the post? Damn, I wish I could do that.
Me too.
There's a fire beneath my skin. There's a fever that makes me ill. Got chest, got your name written on it. Love's a drug that I live by. Give me a shot before I die. Come back, I'm begging you, please come back. Come back, I'm down on my knees. Come back, I'm begging you, please. I don't know why, I don't understand how you sold me down the river. I don't know why, I don't understand how you sold me down the river. Sold me down the river. Oh yeah, sold me down the river now.
So, Mark, who sold you down the river, brother?
I sold myself down the river one day. I was running a blueberry farm some years ago, and I had a carload of burly blueberry workers in my Geo Metro. And I had my...
How do you get a load of anything in a Geo Metro?
Yeah. Compression, primarily. And I had my alarm cassette in the deck. And we were listening to this, and this song comes on, which is one of my faves. And I said, oh, these guys are like the Welsh U2. And which I thought was a very good comparison. And I talked at some length about this, and I'm looking in my rearview mirror, and I realized these guys have no idea who U2 is. So, a moment of stupidity on my part.
Yeah, you got to know your audience.
Yeah, read the room, people. Exactly.
So before the many, many New Wave fans, or Sean Windsor for that matter, correct me, yes, the Alarm are Welsh. They're not from Glasgow, so I apologize. I don't want to upset our massive New Wave following. So that's Mark's story. We always welcome your suggestions for Room 7609. You can send them to mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. We'll play just about anything, but you got to give us a good story. And I would say getting more than a pint of blueberries in a Geo Metro, which I think had a 3-cylinder engine, if I recall correctly. So I imagine you were not going very fast with all those burly gentlemen in the car.
It really depended on how tight you wound the spring before you took off.
And if you had a tailwind. So, yeah. So if you have a Geo Metro and a Jetstream, you can probably get anywhere. But you'll go far with us if you send us a great song idea and a great story. And Room 7609 is brought to you by the place that brings great music to the East Side almost every single night. That's the Caju Cafe. It's the pride of the East Side, where you find great eats, dope beats, and feather bowling. Start your week off right with Muscle Madness every Monday when the Caju dishes up all-you-can-eat mussels. There's lots of other great stuff on the menu if you don't particularly care for those Belgian delicacies. Wednesdays, it's Detroit's longest-running karaoke night. Thursday this week, you'll hear the Bill Meyer Group Trio, and there'll be an open blues jam. Friday, it's Bowie's Alive and the Cinematic Furs. For those of you who need help, and I hope it's not too many of you, that's a David Bowie tribute band and a Psychedelic Furs trouble band. Mark, do you have a favorite Psychedelic Furs song?
No.
Okay.
I'm just glad.
That sounded like Robin Gibb on the Barry Gibb talk show.
I'm just glad he asked you, Mark, not me, Mark, because I would have said no.
My favorite is probably Elon Musk's least favorite, and that would be President Gas. It's a great one. On Saturday, you'll hear the music of Frank Zappa, another tribute band. They take the stage, and you can end the weekend on a high note with the Detroit Jazz Factory Big Band on Sunday. For more on the music and the menu, go to cajucafe.com, and of course, we have a link to their website on our website. We need to thank some new soulmates. It's been a while since we've been putting up some live shows because of the holidays. Since then, William, it was really nothing. No, it was a nice contribution. We do appreciate that. And Nurse with a Purse opened that purse and became a soulmate. And of course, if we missed Francis, we absolutely have to have Francis, who over the years has contributed to us in some curious amounts. $6.66 would pop up every once in a while when you could only donate whenever you felt like it. Now you can donate every month automatically by becoming a soulmate for as little as $5 a month. You get to watch the show. You get the show before everybody else. You don't have any of those annoying insertion ads. And you get our monthly bonus episode. We just posted our most recent bonus episode. It's an episode of Ask the Soul starring Alan Lee, former Fox News Mornings anchor and novelist. Man about town, great guy who has some great advice for you. So we appreciate if you can check that out. Maybe you don't want to make regular donations, but you do want to hear our bonus episodes. Now through Patreon, you can purchase access to bonus episodes a la carte. So that's a great way to do it. But anything you do supports the show, and we really appreciate it. And one of our soulmates writes to us, "Hey guys, Patreon supporter here. This is Michael." He says, "I love the show. I'm catching up on prior episodes, and I just listened to the Alan Lee podcast. I served as a nuclear submarine officer in the mid-'80s. We went on reconnaissance mission in the Barents Sea against the Ruskies. If Alan would like, I'd be glad to tell him some sea stories." He says my wife isn't really that interested in them. And he was not kidding about the massive damage done by the traitorous Walker brothers. So we did share Michael's contact information with Alan. So if you see a future spy novel that involves a nuclear sub in the Barents Sea, well, you heard about it first here. Joe writes, "Hello, you were talking about your favorite Christmas movies on one of your last shows. My personal favorite is The Muppet Christmas Carol."
Yeah, I just watched it.
We had the VH version when I was a kid and would watch it every year. So now, were you watching that for you or for Charlotte and Annie?
For my two girls, but I'm a huge Muppets fan. So
who's your favorite Muppet?
Gonzo. Who doesn't like Gonzo? Gonzo's hilarious. No?
I just gonna say, don't tell me it's Gonzo.
What? Why? What's wrong with Gonzo?
It's just too nutty. I don't know.
Exactly.
No. I'm thinking Animal, the drummer.
Oh, I love me some Animal too, though. What a great Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem Band. Great band.
I had some of their 8 tracks, which I lent to Charlie when he was driving his Cadillac. He was always collecting those 8 tracks. But yeah, thanks, Joe. Our most recent episode was actually one of our older episodes where we listened to all the James Bond movies, and we talked about them, and we did our own little tournament. We did it before No Time to Die came out, but I guess that had no chance at taking our top spot. Steven says, "You guys could have done 3 hours of this episode. Live and Let Die is still my all-time favorite, going for the Blaxploitation Bond. Can't beat Blaxploitation Bond," says Steven. "Big fan, here every week, and appreciate the content. Happy New Year." Well, Steven, right back at you, brother. One of my more recent columns, I wrote about how Governor Whitmer, who took a bit of a beating earlier in the show, from two people who would like to run the Democratic Party for her and for all Democrats about how when I wrote about her really apparent absence in the lame duck session, which for those of you who aren't political geeks, which I assume is most of you, is when the legislature gets together and tries to push through some legislation at the last hour. This is often when some of the most significant bills get passed and sent to the governor's office. I got a call from one of her press people who were just complaining about everything but the things that mattered. And I revealed that this is a common occurrence where members of the media or their bosses are berated by members of the governor's press team who don't really respond to much of our concerns, but they do complain about us a lot. So that's an interesting situation. And I always find it interesting that spokespeople don't like to go on the record because they're kind of paid to speak. Anyways, without getting into that, I'll put a link to that column on our website. Calvin says, if you record today, well, we're catching up, Calvin, I'd love for ML to elaborate on Whitmer's cronies trying to get him fired as detailed in his last column. So let's set the record straight right here. They were not trying to get me fired, but they did call just about every boss they could think of to say, hey, what's this Elric guy doing? What's his job there? Why is he saying these things? And to my boss's credit, they said, he's doing his job. Why don't you answer some questions? Calvin says, I mean, that's why you call someone's bosses, try and get him fired? Well, they weren't trying to get me fired. I think they were just trying to get us to make a correction. And I can't reveal the contents of my conversation with the spokesperson because it was off the record, but I will tell you everything that they thought was erroneous was not. And in the end, I did offer them an opportunity to speak to the governor. I said I'd be happy to talk to her about what she did do during lame duck, and I would propose to my boss that we make this a front page story. Never heard back from them. And I will tell you, after I wrote my column saying what busters they were, they didn't call anybody to complain. So I guess perhaps that's progress. I'm just not sure. Maybe they've just given up on us. She is, after all, a lame duck herself now. Calvin says the governor's people got LaDuff clipped at the news for a throwaway Nestle joke. Not surprising they tried coming for Elric's scalp, too. Let's set the record straight there, too, Calvin. Charlie made an inappropriate comment about the Attorney General for which he's acknowledged, and I think it's fair to say he's regretful. And I think you could even say he apologized.
No, he did not apologize.
He did not apologize, but he was regretful. He's been reflective about that. And if you listen to the episode where we had Charlie on talking about that, it was a full and open discussion, and we admonished our friend and colleague as well for some of the language he used. And it's a pretty enlightening episode. I highly recommend it. But it wasn't the governor's people who went after LaDuff. It was the Attorney General's people and the Detroit News, because they were troubled by some of the language Charlie used. Let's just say both sides agreed to part ways. Back to Calvin. Says, isn't a little late for Michigan reporters to finally hold Whitmer accountable? Elric and his statewide peers let Whitmer, Benson, Nestle treat them like low-caste dirt for the last 6 years. Whitmer especially. Big-timed all of you while she rolled out the red carpet for national reporters and podcast hosts, and yet you all still acted like subservient foot soldiers carrying their water. Happy New Year! Boy, so Calvin starts with, way to go, Elric, and then, by the way, you're a bootlicking bag of shit. Well, Calvin, let me just put it this way. We've had complaints from Nestle's people about our podcast. We've had complaints from the governor's people about our podcast and about my columns. I don't think I've been taking it lying down. I've been standing up. And not only have I been standing up to them, I've been telling all of you who read and listen that these folks are not giving you what you're paying for, and we've held them accountable. As for my other colleagues, I think that they push back in their own ways. But there's a very delicate point where you try not to burn bridges with public officials and with their spokespeople. I'm past that, man. I'm just going to tell you what's going on, and
Good.
so you know, and we call them out.
And going back to what Mark said earlier on the show, too, it's like, why don't you, instead of doing these things through back channels and spokespeople talking, why don't you just come here? Just come on the show. Address it. Don't be scared. Address it. Talk to everybody. Get the message out there yourself.
Yeah, I think
I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be nice if it did.
No, this is something that I need to write about sometime, and I kind of write about it from time to time. But Public officials these days don't feel like they need to engage with the media. They don't feel like they need to have live conversations. They want to exchange texts. They want questions in advance. They want.
Well, I think the last national election might change that.
In what way?
Well, I think Trump went on a lot of different podcasts, talked to a lot of people, and that seemed to sway a certain segment of the population, meaning young guys.
Yeah, I got to tell you, we heard Mark talk about that earlier. You got to be willing to go into hostile territory.
Yes.
You need to be Pete Buttigieg going on Fox News. Now, I will tell you, Pete Buttigieg did go on Fox News. His candidate lost, so I think that takes more than that. But yes, you shouldn't turn people down. And you know, I'm not here to defend one candidate or the other. And I do think that Trump was very smart to go on Joe Rogan like he did. But at the same time, Rogan told Harris, we need 3 hours. We need you to come where we are. When you're in the last couple of weeks of a campaign, you have everything scheduled out. You can't take, and that's like a full day. That was a really unreasonable request of Joe Rogan for any of the candidates. The fact that Trump, who had a much looser schedule, was able to do it was to his benefit and to his advantage. But I think Harris has taken a lot more heat for not going on Rogan than she deserved. Now, what she should have said was, hey, listen, Joe, we'll cut out all the MMA talk and I'll zoom in for an hour. I think they should have negotiated something like that.
Yeah, because it's all perception.
But we saw this with Biden, too. When Biden had something to answer for, what did he do? He went on MSNBC. Yep. It's like, listen, I'm a big believer that the best way to show that you're not afraid is you go into the toughest bar in town and you fight the biggest dude in there. And that shows everybody else either that you're not afraid and that you beat their ass, or you're not afraid to take a beating. But what it does is it shows that you're not afraid and you won't back down. And we see a lot of politicians not even backing down, just straight up hiding. And it has to stop. And my colleagues and my peers also have to demand, first of all, that you're going to talk to us. And second of all, if you don't, we're going to explain to our readers, our viewers, and our listeners that you wouldn't and how we tried to get you to do that. That's not because we're special or because we have more rights than anybody else. We don't. We have the same rights as you. The Freedom of Information Act applies to everybody. It's not just for the media. But the reason why we are a little different than you is because we spend all day watching this shit. We know these people. Their people know us. And so when we contact them, it's not because I have a question. It's because I think you have a question. And I think I'm the person to get an answer for you from them to bring back to you so that you can then take that information and use it in the best way that you see fit. So we are your representatives trying to get answers from your representative government. Not that we're special, just that you got better things to do than spend time with these jokers. We're paid to do it. And we can't do it if they won't answer our questions. And I would humbly suggest to you that when you see there's a politician or a public official there that won't answer your questions, don't give them your vote. And when you see them, you ask them too, so they know that it's not just me with the bug up my ass, that I'm speaking for a lot of people with some sort of posterior problem. Sean is not here because a lot going on with the Detroit Lions. You may have mentioned that. If you didn't see a column Sean wrote over the holidays about how the Detroit Lions are affecting beer league hockey leagues like my own, I'll tell you what, it was a great column. And not only was it a good column because it was a different look at Lions fever, but I went to my game on Sunday at Troy at 10:30. Every rink but one. 3 of the 4 sheets were dark because all the other teams said, we're not going to come and play hockey if the Lions are on for a game. They could decide the NFC championship. And the captain of the other team, Donnie from the Ginger Kids, reached out to me and said, hey, are you guys going to play? And I said, well, if we can negotiate a tie, we're happy to do that. And he said, no, I checked with the rink, as you read in Sean's column, and we'll have a link to Sean's column on our website. The rink was saying we only allow gentlemen's ties in the playoffs. One of you guys has to forfeit, and when you forfeit, it goes down as a 5-0 loss, which is, first of all, you don't want to lose points in the standings. Second of all, you don't want 5 goals against you when there's a goal differential tiebreaker. So the Ginger Kids and the Bulldogs played. Bulldogs won 3-2. And the refs were all like, what are you guys doing here? When we got to the rink, they didn't have their uniforms on. They didn't have their skates on. They were watching the Lions game in the lobby. So if you are wondering how big Lions fever is, first of all, where you been?
Oh, it's massive.
But second of all, no hockey guy skips a game for the Lions. Now they do. So Sean really, as Sean and his friends in Ann Arbor might say, caught the zeitgeist on that one. So we'll have a link to that on our website too. Mark and Mark.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah, 2 Marks. Thanks for coming in. It's good to see you guys.
It was great. Thank you.
It was great to be seen, as always.
And I'm still trying to figure out how this running for Democratic Party chairman thing is going to work, but we will be keeping an eye on that. Watch for my columns in the Free Press. We would appreciate if you'd subscribe. It's $25 for 2 years. That's pretty damn good. So Clark Park charity hockey game coming up on January 18th. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. Love to see you there at Clark Park. You'll see me play some very bad hockey with some guys who play some really good hockey. And until next week, we turn to Cyrus to take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You okay? I'm just dandy. I got a bowl of chocolate pudding in my underpants.
We didn't have any pudding in there.
Sean, there's one in every political party.